Hello everybody, I want to welcome you back down into the dungeon here. It's the first Sunday in December. Man, where has this year gone? And yeah, like I was saying last week, we're going to kind of get away from the overall garden update on Sunday, I think. It's time to make a few changes. So today we're just kind of farting around down here, having a little fun, and I thought I'd bring you along for that, because why not? So, yeah, let's get started. One of the things I'm doing today is adding to the little houseplant jungle here. I'm kind of really liking the way this is working. And this multi-planting over here, we lost the first Astrid Prep up front. That one there seems to be doing alright. That one there, a little questionable. But all in all, I am digging the multiple species in a single planter setup here. So I'm going to do this again, except this time I'm not using a Dieffenbachia. I'm going to throw in one of those flaming caddy cuttings that I've got, because there are like a million of them around the house. And I've got a lot of planters kicking around from peppers that have died off, which has also left me with a great deal of soil that I will not be using for seedlings or anything this year. So houseplants seems like an appropriate way to use it up. I mean, some of it's got some good potting mix in there, and I found a worm in the last couple of bins that I have dumped out, so there's bound to be a little bit of biology in this at least, and a little bit of worm casting, so I'm hoping that the plants will like it. They don't seem to hate it so far anyway. But we're going to take these two, because there's the Flaming Caddy and the Astrid Peperomia, and we're going to add to it this spider plant here that needs to be pulled out of the aquaponic garden, because this tricolor sage is going back in so that we complete the herb garden setup. I moved those rosemary cuttings that somehow seem to be alive but not developing any roots. So these are over here in the once empty spot. The parsley is all spread out. This sage is all lonesome now. Move the tomatoes over. You're right, Punky. So far they're still alive. We'll see if I ever do get rid of them. The oregano back there is looking much happier now that there's water actually coming out of that hose. And oh, look at that. Somebody got a military-style haircut. Zip. Needless to say, Patches was really, really happy to see that much mint coming into the compost pile. And that one back there still needs a little growth. So, yeah, once I get the tricolor sage in here, all 8 parts of this Euro Grower garden that I've converted to aquaponics will be growing me herbs, and that really, really works for me. I might eventually switch out one of these mints here, maybe add that one to this one when I get some like tarragon, thyme, marjoram. There are lots of other herbs that I don't have growing yet. So I'm going to start some seeds along the way. We'll see ultimately what replaces that, and I am open to suggestions. What does anybody think will blend well with the other herbs that are here? Feel free to comment. You know I loves the feedback. Over here, I want to show you this really quickly because we're moving this today. Is that so-called smart garden. You'll notice I do have a bubbler in here now. We picked up a bunch of fish tank supplies, like very amateur fish tank supplies. I was kind of hoping for a fish tank heater to throw into the chicken water bucket. Whole different story, whole different channel. Anyway, there was an air pump in there, so I've hooked that up. Still waiting on one that apparently was being sent to me by Brandon, so that's awesome. Looking forward to that. But we're going to move this today. This is not quite level. Might fart around with some of these pepper seedlings because hopefully you can see them on the camera here. We've got some true leaves popping out, which is at about the point that I am trying to put them into their little tiny party cups, and there are a few varieties to do that with. So yes, things are coming along fairly well. You know what, let's start by moving that. So I've cleared off a bit of space here on top of the LED lights, and you'll notice that's looking a little different too. Don't know if we'll get to that today or not, but we shall see. Pitcher plant's doing nicely. Kind of really enjoying playing with the toys. Not entirely sure how adult that is, but I'm not entirely sure I care. Anyway, so we're going to put the smart garden here so that hopefully it'll be nice and level for a change, and it's getting plenty of light from this particular fluorescent fixture. So yes. Alright, well I guess now it's time for a quick game of upside downside. On the upside, it's much easier to see the water level, and I clearly need to bring everything up just a little bit. On the downside, Now that I am turning this into a small deep water culture setup, I am going to need to darken the sides of this if I want the roots to have any hope of survival. But yes, here we go. Alright, with the water level raised, we can look into it now and easily see that most of these cups are at least through the water level. You can also see that that is a bare end on the air hose. Getting an air stone on there would be a good thing, and when that other pump arrives, I will do just that. In fact, it's a 2 outlet, so we'll get twice as much air in there. Anywho, I think we're going to rearrange this a little bit. Currently, all of these peppers are the unknown random compost ones. And I see no reason to give random peppers special treatment. So, I'm kind of thinking maybe some of these should be up there instead. Not quite sure which ones. Figured out what I'm gonna do, and I think what I'm gonna do is take one from each variety, probably the nicest looking one from each variety, transfer them up to that little DWC setup. Makes a little more room in here for when I transplant some of those seedlings out and into here. And yeah, I think it'll be good. It's also kind of forcing me to figure out a coating system for these things, because obviously painter's tape is not going to stick terribly well to such a moist surface. But while the sides of this are still clear, it's easy for me to make sure that there's, looks like a mint leaf floating in there. Anyway, it's easy to make sure that they're contacting the water, getting nice and moist. I've got that air hose now wedged in with one of the old net cups, so that's gonna work for now anyway. So yeah, I'm going to transfer some of these on up, and we'll get back to it in a second. Well, I took one of each from the tray that's already underneath those PVC LEDs, and I left 3 of the random peppers to kind of buffer the light coming in from this end as far as root protection. I know that's not going to be enough, but it's a for now sort of thing. And I've got 3 spots left in here, so I'm thinking maybe I will transplant some of those little seedlings over there today. There are a few varieties with true leaves. They're tiny, but they're there. Gotta say, I am loving this little dollar store spoon. Fits perfectly into those cells. Pulling these up in the peat moss quite nicely. Leaves nice little empty containers. Anyway, we're gonna start with one of the Kangstar Lemon Starburst. I believe that's what that is. That was sent to me by Charles P. Once again, thank you, Charles. Those true leaves may not be huge, but they are there, and that's what matters. Initials. No way I was fitting the whole name on the cup there. Next up, we've got one of the Hell's Bells from Mr. Batman over at Make It Wayne. Again, a very tiny, tiny little true leaf in there, but it's there. So, off to the DWC for you. And there's space for one more in there, so I think I'm going to load it up with this chocolate Naga Brain from Dave down there at Grown at Home in WV. It doesn't have true leaves on it yet, but I'm hoping that it will, and it was from a very limited number of seeds, so I don't want to take any chances. You get a new home today, friend. So that fills our little DWC garden here in these little tiny cups. Like I say, most of these, one of each of a variety, and then we've got the 3 randoms at the end. So far, this is a very interesting little thing, and I have to say, seems to be working better than the Smart Garden I returned. So good deal there. However, we are out of space for currently transplanting those seedlings, so I will take care of those some other time. Let's get back to houseplants, shall we? Here's a quick look at the root that formed on that spider plant in the aquaponic garden. Took a while to get itself going, but clearly developed a nice little rhizome in there, which is good. This is undoubtedly going to suffer as it transfers from aquaponic to soil. Most plants do, but being a spider plant, I'm sure it will make it through. These 2 are already soil plants, so they're just suffering for their own reasons. But I'm thinking, you know, spread it out. It should look nice. Well, that's a nice looking starting point. We'll see how it goes. Got to soak it down with the sprayer. Never ceases to amaze me how tiny the root systems are on those little astrid peperomias. But this had a nice deep root system, and we know the spider plant did as well, so at least 2 out of these should be just fine. Well, I guess next up we need to clean the roots off on this little sage if it's going into the ponics. Shake it out. Not a whole lot of a root system on there. Not a whole lot of dirt either, but anyway, wash, wash, wash. Clean enough. And I always like to transfer things into the ponics when the water is going, so I know the roots are down where it's nice and moist, but hopefully that will do just fine. Alright, one more thing done. Well, looking around, that's probably going to be about it for playing in the dungeon today. Thank you for joining me, sticking around to this point if you have done so. And I will see you guys next time we're screwing around here in the garden. Take care, everybody.